ಈ ಸ್ಯಾರಿ ಮೇಲೆ ಬರ್ತಿದೆ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಇರೋದಕ್ಕೆ
ಹಾ ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಬರ್ತದ
ಬರ್ತಿದೆ ನಾವು ಕವರ್
ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಒಂದ್ಸೂರು ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಹೋಗಿ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಸಾರಿ ರೈಟ್ ನಿಮ್ ರೈಟ್ ಹೋಗಿ ಹಾ ಯಾ
ಇಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ ಅದು ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಇರಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ
ಹೌದು ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಬಾರ್ಡರ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಡೌನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಡಿ ಕಾವ್ಯ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ
ಓಕೆ ಓಕೆ
ಸರಿ ಹೋಗಲ್ಲ
ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್
Oh my god.
ಓಕೆ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್
Yes, start. Ma'am, shall I admit?
ಯಾ
ಮಾಡಿ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ನ
ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಮಾಡು ಇರ್ಲಿ ಬಿಡಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಇಲ್ಲ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಬಿಡು
Okay, very. You been able to see me?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good morning to one and all and welcome back. It's my privilege to host the Day 3 International Webinar on Emerging Trends and Prospects in Biotechnology, a career guidance series, one organized by the Oxford Biotechnology Society, Department of Biotechnology, TOCS. I, Mamta, Associate Professor, Department of Biotechnology, the Oxford College of Science, extend a warm welcome to you all. Knowledge as a process of piling up facts. Wisdom lies in their simplification. A simple conversation with such knowledgeable personality is better than 10 years of experience. Our resource person of the day, Ms. Nagalakshmi Helior, is such a knowledgeable person. I'm glad to introduce and welcome Ms. Nagalakshmi. Ms. Nagalakshmi completed her BSc from Bangalore University in the year 2007 and have obtained her Masters of Science in Biotechnology from the Oxford College of Science, Bangalore. She has completed writing her thesis in environmental microbiology from RMIT University under the supervision of distinguished Professor Andy Buck. Ms. Helior has spent the last 5 years in investigating the effects of different types of bioremediation on various contaminants with a special focus on using traditional and novel microbiological techniques. She has worked for government agencies like Environment Protection Authority, Victoria, Australia as Emerging Contaminants Officer, advising EPA on knowledge gaps in current scientific research in the field of environmental sciences. She is currently a research fellow at the NSHAR Labs at the RMIT University, Melbourne, working on 2 major projects. One, impact of microplastics in Australian marine environment, and the other project is on microbial enhanced oil. Ms. Helior's main research focus is to develop novel methods to remediate hydrocarbon contaminated sites and understand effects of pollutants on microbial community, which can be used in biomonitoring programs for assessment of soil health. She is particularly interested in the pattern of microbial community shifts that happen due to interaction between inoculated organisms and native organisms. She has authorized over 20 research publications in various reviewed journals, policy briefs, and book chapters. I extend a warm welcome to you, Ms. Nagalakshmi. May I now request you to kindly take over the session and enlighten us about the future prospects in environmental biotechnology. Over to you, Ms. Nagalakshmi. Hello. My request, Nagalakshmi.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a great introduction. Just give me a moment while I share my screen. Is my screen visible now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mamta ma'am, for such a wonderful introduction. It is my pleasure to be actually presenting in this international webinar series. Well, today I would be speaking on future prospects in environmental biotechnology. And again, thank you for the organizers. And I promise by end of this seminar, most of the people here would have actually learned the future job prospects in this field. I would like to focus this seminar mostly on the job prospects and how you could actually be developing your career in environmental technology. And probably if I have some time at the last, I will touch base a little bit on my research that I have done so far. Just give me a minute while I'm just navigating to the next slide. I'm not, just, okay. As a professional snapshot, Mamta ma'am has given quite a bit about myself. I did my undergraduation and post-graduation studies in Bangalore, and I was an Oxford College alumni. I'm very proud of it. And then I started my PhD in RMIT University in Melbourne. And I also worked in Oxford College for a couple of years as assistant professor, and then moved on to Australia to work as PhD fellow. And then while I was working as a PhD fellow, I've also worked as emerging contaminants project officer in EPA Victoria. And then I also worked as research associate on various projects. So far, I have received funding from various funding bodies like Prosper.net, RMIT University, EPA Victoria, then Australian government's Department of Industry, Innovation and Science. I have been awarded various research fundings, and I also was a part of a team which won RMIT Vice Chancellor's Best Team Award. I won ProsperNet Young Research Award and have authored over 20 research publications, policy briefs, and book chapters, which I would be touching base at the end of this talk. So coming to what is environmental biotechnology? Well, environmental biotechnology is a stream of science. Basically, people think it is, okay, taking a microbe, putting into the soil and seeing what's happening. No, that is not it. There is so many other things that is covered under environmental biotechnology. Basically, you're going to do some stuff to actually help betterment of the environment, basically successfully improving the environment's quality. Environmental biotechnology is just not the water or soil, it is also air. So you can't leave your microbes into the air. So I want all the attendees here not to have the notion that environmental biotechnology is putting something into the soil. No, it is much, much different. And there are a lot of reasons that cause environmental pollution, that is anthropogenic ways, that is what is human made, or natural ways, which is like volcanic eruption or whatever. They all cause a problem to the environment. And all this is taken care of by an environmental technologist. So environmental biotechnology is sort of a clean way. It is an eco-friendly way, and it is non-toxic to the environment, and you're cleaning the environment in a very eco-friendly way. So I will not be talking too much about the environmental biotechnology at this stage, but I would want to actually highlight what are the career prospects for this in this field. So I'm sure you will be amazed to see how much of career opportunities is present in environmental biotechnology by the end of this talk. So it covers a very broad range of occupations. So the main sectors of employment in environmental technology is environmental protection. So I will be dealing with each of these sectors individually in the next few slides. So it will be environmental protection, where you are looking at protecting all sorts of environment, air, water, and land, even based, in fact. And then it is conservation and preservation of natural resources. We have got a lot of natural resources like fishes, then we've got wetlands, we have got rivers, we have got so many forests, and all these things. These also come under environmental biotechnology, where you are looking at conserving and preserving the natural resources. And then you have environmental sustainability. It is basically educating people about how important an environmental and sustainability prospect is. So all these things will be covered under environmental sustainability part. So now coming with environmental protection, we have got various things, that is air quality protection, water quality protection, land quality protection and site restoration, and waste management. So all these I have grouped under environmental protection. And then when it comes to conservation and preservation of natural resources, I have grouped fisheries and wildlife, then forestry and national parks and protected areas into this field, and energy and climate protection into this field. Then when it comes to environmental sustainability, I have got education, research and development, policy and legislation. So people would be asking me, how would policy and legislation be an environmental biotechnology? How would national parks and protected areas come under environmental biotechnology? So I'll give you an example of how an environmental biotechnologist would have done all these in the talk as it follows. So when you see this environmental protection common position titles, it is just under environmental protection. See at this first thing. Only this part of the environmental protection has so many job titles that you can be looking at. So I'll touch brief what can happen in this area. That is, first is research and development. So in research and development, what can happen is you're looking at how you could be safeguarding your environment. Say there is a toxic substance released into the air. So you could be doing research from what is the source of this pollution coming from, how it is causing the pollution, and what is the impact of this pollution towards people around. Say for example, human beings breathe that air. So what could be the impact of this pollution? And say if you take in, for instance, water, there are a lot of industries emitting effluent into the water, be it wastewater stream or be it sewage treatment plants, be it rivers, be it lakes. There is a lot of not only industries, even for example, okay, you find a very good lake, you're having a dog with you taking for a walk, and you see a beautiful lake and you think, oh my God, this lake is so beautiful for my dog to swim. And you're going to take your dog to a swim, but you're going to actually potentially cause harm to the water ecosystem. So all these sorts of human activities, say, traditionally we wash clothes in rivers. So what all pollutants we are putting in by washing our clothes into rivers. And not only that, the human, every day-to-day water that we use are also actually going through the wastewater treatment plant and then to the rivers and streams. So you are looking at what are the source of contaminations, how could that be actually remediated. So this is when it comes to the research and development in these environment protection areas. And then if you are looking at the next thing here would be sort of development of legislations, regulations, and guidelines. So I will give you an example of this, of how I have done in the future. However, most of the people employed in this sector would actually look at what could be the regulations that we set. Say, for example, a company is letting in water or smoke into the air. You cannot just do it by the sake of it. You will have to follow a particular guideline. Say, for example, a water is set into food industry is leaving water into streams or rivers. They cannot just let in like that. So they have to say, for example, check for E. coli content in the water. So there is a particular set of guidelines and standards for how much E. coli can be present in water. So these sort of areas also could be a potential employment opportunity for people, where you are developing some sort of guidelines and standards and register, I mean, in terms of also making some legislations. And then you would probably be doing risk assessment. The same example, like say water, which is being put into the, dirty water that is being put into a fresh water, a stream or a river. What would be the potential risk of this in the water, the clear, real water? So that could potentially be causing harm to fishes, that could be potentially causing harm to local ecosystem, like any other sort of organisms that are present. It is been spoken a lot about algal blooms these days. It is going to indicate how your water has been polluted. So this can also be an area where you could be working, that is the risk assessment part of the environment. Then you could also be actually working in water quality testing, air quality testing, soil quality testing. I'm sorry, there is somebody else speaking there. Okay. So the air, water, and soil quality testing is also a very broad sector of employment, where there are thousands of environmental scientists working. They go on field like regular basis, say every week or every 15 days, to collect samples from different places, like air or soils or water, and they get back to their organization, and then they send it out to labs for potential testing of various different contaminants, be it microbiological, be it chemical contaminants, and all these. So that is that is sort of a quality testing role that you could be potentially looking at. Then you could be potentially also looking at remediation. Okay, now we have already actually contaminated our systems. So how could we actually remediate these systems? So there comes again, you would be working as a remediation expert to try and clean up all these hazardous chemicals in your be it water or soil. And last thing I would actually like to highlight at this present stage, where there is a lot of opportunities, is in terms of waste management. So there is a lot of things where people are speaking about, okay, you cannot put plastic in this bin. Okay, plastic is very hazardous, so this shouldn't be going into the landfill. So, and there is also something called e-waste management. Now a lot of people are talking about e-waste. That what is this e-waste? That is your electronic waste, that is your laptops, your computers that are not being used, cannot be just discarded. But there is, for instance, China was actually importing a lot of waste, and they would actually be potentially looking at how to remediate these wastes. But now China has actually imposed ban on particularly taking any waste, and especially e-waste. They said we are not going to import any e-waste. So how would you be managing these e-wastes? That is also a potentially very good employment sector. Not only e-waste, that is the waste management. There will be leachates going into the aquatic systems. How could you actually manage these leachates? So if I keep going on, there is a lot of things that keeps on going. So when you are looking at job opportunities in this sector, whatever is appearing on the screen is what you would be looking at. So I would like, in terms of air, it is, I have first few lines which shows about what sort of job opportunities you could be looking for air. I would like to highlight this, where it is called environmental consultant and environmental engineer and environmental protection officer. These are very common terms. This only when you open this job ad, you would know what sort of consultant that are they looking at. Is it for air? Is it for water? Or is it for soil? So it is pretty much a broader term given, and some are very, very streamlined, like this freshwater scientist and, for example, chemist, and for example, hazardous waste engineer. These things are very, very specifically put up as a job ad, and you could potentially see what they are looking at. Well, you could tell me, I am a biotechnologist, and how would I be able to get a position of engineer? Yes, there are a lot of BSc holders. There are a lot of MSc holders who have this role as hazardous waste engineer. Okay, they say environmental scientist. I have just got a bachelor degree. How will I be able to do a scientist role? There are a lot of graduate scientist roles, that is environmental scientist. For being an environmental scientist, you really don't have to have a PhD. You can start off as a graduate environmental scientist with a BSc degree, or whatever bachelor degree you are having. So you can also be a freshwater scientist, for example, with your bachelor's or master's degree. You really don't have to hold a PhD for all these things. So there are a lot of job opportunities even without doing PhD in this environmental science. But only if you have to get into R&D section, that is in academia. Industry R&D section is very different. In industry, if you have to get into the R&D section, many times you don't need PhD. But in academic R&D section, it is mostly preferable that you have a PhD. So now moving on to conservation and preservation of natural resources. Well, yes, this is also very important. We have got such a great, natural resources, and we have actually been spoiling it. For example, fisheries. Fisheries is a pretty big industry in India. There are a lot of the Department of Fisheries Management actually puts up job ads pretty much 3 or 4, 5 sometimes every day. There are a lot of opportunities in terms of fisheries management. And in these fisheries management, what you would be looking at is, again, what is the potential impact of hazardous materials in water to fishes. Second, is there, for example, you would be doing some statistical analysis on how there is a difference in the number of fishes. Say, for example, you have a data from 2010 to 2020. So you would probably looking at what is the trend of increase or decrease in the fish population. Then you would be seeing, why is there a change? If there is an increase, why is there a change? If there is decrease, then why is there a change? So these sort of opportunities can also be there in fisheries industry. And then you could also be actually looking at basically looking at endangered fish species and what you could do in terms of safeguarding these fishes. And the other thing is, when it comes to wildlife, yes, there are a lot of opportunities in wildlife management. You could probably look at what are the threatened species in wildlife. So why do you need a biotechnology degree in that? So in biotechnology degree, say, for example, you have learned what are the endangered species. Many people think that, okay, I'm going to do a gene mutation, I'm going to do this, that, and have a transgenic animal. But that's not the only thing. You would have got a lot of background knowledge on what sort of animals they are. So you could probably use those skills here. in terms of how you could be a wildlife biologist, basically looking at what are the endangered species, why are they endangered, what is causing them to be endangered, and all these things. And then I would like to highlight policy officer here as well, where policy officer roles fits in pretty much uh, every sector of environmental sciences, employment. So you could probably be even doing some sort of writing policy briefs in terms of how to protect these endangered wildlife species or endangered fishes, or whatever it is in terms of natural resources. And you could also be going out into the field looking at what are the threatened fauna. I'm sorry for that. Somebody is actually trying to write on the screen. You could be looking at what could be the potential fauna that are, flora that have been threatened. So you could be looking at, for instance, in India we have got a lot of flora that has been that are being used for both commercial purposes and in terms of using it for cosmetic industry and stuff like that. Say for example, commercial value is like, say, teak wood and sandalwood. They've got high commercial values, and how would you be actually able to safeguard these threatened species, and how could you be able to take care of these commercial value, uh, flora is all very important. And again, all the when you look for jobs, whatever is appearing on this screen is what you could be actually looking as a keyword in terms of your job search, or how you could develop your career in terms of natural resource management. And if you see from my last slide and this slide, you would still see a lot of keywords that remain the same. And among that, one is the toxicologist. So toxicology, I mean, a good understanding of toxicology is very important for you to be able to pursue your career in environmental biotechnology area. How would any toxic substance actually cause threat to the environment, particular environment that you are looking at? So I pretty much, when it comes to the natural resources management, it is same as even for the forestry that I have been actually speaking about even in my last slide, that you would probably even be working in the forest department. These are all mostly government agencies that does especially forestries and fisheries, that they will be looking at these sort of positions that I have actually highlighted here, which is pretty much again dealing with policies and ecology, and mostly how would you sort of manage the wildlife and vegetation and stuff like that. So these are the common position titles when it comes to the forest that you would be looking at. Say, for example, ecosystem restoration officer, a wildlife biologist, or a heritage officer, or a museum officer, and stuff like that. And the next sector that we are looking at is energy and climate protection. This is one of the very high growth demand sector of employment. So I would like to go through each one of these individually. Now we have analyst. So what does analyst mean for me if I'm having a bachelor degree or a master degree in biotechnology? This is a very important aspect wherein you would definitely be dealing with huge amounts of data sets, wherein you have to be very good in analyzing the data. So how is it related to climate, energy, and climate protection? Say, in this analyst position, recently multinational companies are hiring environmental technologists basically to see what's happening in terms of indoor greenhouse emissions. You are using a lot of laptops, you're using a lot of other things. How is the air quality inside your building? That is your multinational company. What's happening with when you're using these sort of technologies, technical instruments? How is the indoor air quality? So again, here it is linked to climate protection. Some the organizations are trying their level best to not to be hampering with the environment. Therefore, they have got an environmental technologist to minimize these sort of greenhouse emissions and stuff like that. So then this sector also, again, I would like to highlight that there is a lot of opportunities for research in energy sector. How? So biofuels. You are looking at, say, for example, generating biofuels from molasses, biofuels from E. coli, biofuels. They're called fuel cells. There are a lot of opportunities in terms of looking at alternative energies, and this is again one of the most promising sector in terms of environmental technology. And again, in this technology, in this sector, chemistry knowledge is also very, very important. So probably position titles that you could be looking is what has been displayed on the screen. So coming to sustainability. In sustainability comes where you are educating people. I'll show you a graph in next couple of slides where environmental education is seeing the highest growth in the last 5 years. So when you say education, yes, teaching for a university, teaching for a school, all these are included in environmental education. But there is also another subsector within this sector where local councils, NGOs, and multinational companies are hiring environmental technologists basically to educate communities. In terms of council, you are trying to educate the community around to say how you should be protecting your environment. Basically, say for example, these are the proper recycling strategies that you should be utilizing. You can't be dumping these things into, say for example, in a non-recyclable bin or something like that. So these sort of educators are hired by council, and say multinational companies, they are actually for instance, here in Australia, a lot of companies are having their own disposal systems where you can even take things from home and dispose it in your organization. That is, say for example, I have a heater that is not working. Excuse me. Excuse me. I don't have a heater that is not, I have a heater that is not working. I can take it to my university and dump it in the e-waste section. And the university would probably take that initiative of getting the right people to collect these things, and then successfully discard these items. So these sort of educationalists, along with university and school educations, are also being hired. And you could also pursue your career as a lecturer or a professor and school teacher and stuff like that. And the next sector that I would want to touch base upon is research and development. So far, when I have spoken so much, people would have already realized that environmental sector, especially, being into the research is not only the option, but you have got huge amount of option, even as a graduate and a master's holder. Not only PhD, but PhD, PhD research or any other research is definitely an exciting field for people who really want to pursue their career in. So the common activities that people do in the research and development area is to identify and design a right, environmental research project. So there's no point for me to actually do a research project that has been done 10 years ago, just replicating it now. So if you have that, energy within you to identify new areas of research, this is very, very, uh, exciting career for you in your future. And then basically, I would also like to highlight this: communicate findings. So many people think that, okay, I'm very good at speaking English, I'm able to communicate things, but research and technology communication is so different than the normal English. And many people think, okay, I have studied in my local language, and I'm very, it's very difficult for me to communicate in English, or maybe they think that, I'm not able to communicate in English. That is absolutely fine. If you know how to actually communicate clear, if your mother tongue influence is there, it is absolutely all right. You should have that mindset of, putting through things in a very clear way, that the person who is standing next to you is able to understand it. He is able to understand the concept, but not your, they really don't focus on how good your English is, but they are really focusing on the knowledge. For you to be able to communicate your findings really well, you should have that knowledge. So that knowledge you're going to get through your course that you're actually taking up. And then the next sort of activity that the R&D guys usually do is technical and analytical support activities. So in R&D, for example, there are organizations like National Measurement Institute here in Australia, where guys work there. What happens is, they technically support their clients in terms of what is the contaminant present in whatever samples they get, or what is the amount of E. coli that is present in the water samples they get, or what is the potential pathogen present in any sort of samples, say even food samples they get. So these sort of technical and analytical activity support activities are also part of R&D programs. So when you're looking at common position titles, you could probably look as environmental scientist, a lecturer, or a research fellow, or a research scientist, or a research assistant, associate. So all mostly tagged with the research tag word. And then comes the policy and legislations. So I already mentioned at the start that I'm having a BSc degree, I'm having an MSc degree. How can I be working in a policy and a legislation department? So for you to be able to, for policy and legislation to be implemented, they need very good research in what's happening in an ecosystem, who are the drivers that cause problem in the ecosystem. And for that, you need a policy brief. You need to give some suggestions. You can give suggestions only based on the research that you have done in a particular ecosystem. So for you to be able to give that, output, you need intensive knowledge of, you need an intensive technical knowledge basically in whatever field you are doing. So this policy and legislation can apply in any stream that I have been speaking, like air, water, then soil, then waste. All these will definitely have these positions open, that is, legal officer, policy officer. You could be looking at water policy officer, like, they have all these sort of areas of employment that you could be looking at. And I would be discussing who are the potential employers in the next couple of slides. So now that you have got to read so many, got to know so many employment opportunities that are available in this stream, what is the thing that you need to learn? Skills, technical degree. So technical degree, definitely most of you are going to have your degree as a biotechnologist, like say a BSc or an MSc. Well, I would say there are a lot of opportunities even at the BSc level, but the opportunities increase once you have a master degree. And then good verbal and written communication skills, especially if you're going in terms of policies or research sort of thing. You should be able to communicate technical knowledge to wider audience. Say for example, you're writing a research paper, so that would be targeted to a research community, but there are several organizations which actually write reports for common public. So you should be having that knowledge of writing for both common public and for research community if you're looking for research sort of a roles. Then project management skills. So how would you get project management skills when you're just in your education level, you have not gone out and worked? So if you think, you would be doing a lot of project management within your course. You are going to collect items that are required for your experiments in the lab, uh, get them, that is, you're procuring them, then you're organizing your time, you're going to uh, have your timelines, how you will be able to work on a particular project and stuff like that. So this is all project management. But along with this, I would say if you could actually concentrate on having, if you want to have your career in project management in the environmental sector, you could actually look at 4 to 6 weeks online courses that will give you good knowledge on project management. Say, for example, in your university, your professors would be getting all the lab items. So they would be doing budgeting and they would be doing costing and everything. So you would not be involved in that. But for you to gain understanding about that, I would highly recommend doing some 4 to 6 weeks online courses in project management. So this project management in environmental sector is also a pretty big employment sector. Then the other skill that I would want to highlight is computer literacy, which is very, very, very important. And out of this, I would like to highly recommend, if you want to take career in any of the fields that I have spoken so far, to have sound knowledge in biostatistics. Well, biostatistics is a pretty difficult stream, for me especially. I'm not very good at mathematics. For me, it is definitely very difficult, but that might not be the case for everyone. But having good knowledge of biostatistics is I would say 50% extra added value when you're trying to do your job search. In biostatistics, at this moment, whatever is trending is R, Python. These are, these are the programming languages. I think it is very important for anybody to learn this. So, of course, most of the university curriculum wouldn't have R and Python as their uh, course material. So how would I actually learn them? So there are a lot of online platforms now, like say for example, I have written here Coursera or Udemy. There are some, these are just examples, but there are hundreds of other curriculum based websites that offer courses. So you could probably enroll yourself for these courses online and get some insight on how to do it. These are all free softwares you can download onto your computer and start learning on how to do. If you want to pursue your career in research or environmental sciences, especially research in the future, this is very, very important. That is biostatistics. Then of course you should be having good leadership skills, and then critical thinking and judgment and teamwork, which mostly we all are good at, so it should be okay. So these are the skills that I would like to emphasize any graduate or undergraduate or a postgraduate to be having by the end of their course. So now I spoke about so many employment opportunities, or And then who are these sort of potential employers in this sector? First thing would be government agencies. For instance, in the United States, the Australia here, and most of the European countries have Environmental Protection Authority, which is a federal government or a state government agencies. It depends upon the country. They are the potential employers in terms of environmental protection sector. However, there are also various other stuff that the EPA does. In India, it is mostly, sort of government agencies again, but it is not termed as EPA, but they have their own terminologies, like I think the Department of Science and Technology and stuff like that. So these guys are the ones who will be looking at employing environmental graduates. And again, Department of Fisheries in India is a potential. Look, they pretty much have job openings very often, and Department of Forest and stuff like that. And when it comes to consultancy, I would also like to say in consultancy, what you do is, if say, for example, you're hired as an environmental scientist, you would be going out, collecting the samples, getting back to your organization, sending the samples to, you know, for the test to various labs and stuff like that. Then you're preparing reports on how the pollutant has caused any problem, say for instance in that soil and stuff like that. There are a lot of environmental consultancy firms across the globe who would be actually hiring environmental technologists. For example, in India, you have Arup, you have ERM, you have GCRDPL, and there are a lot of NGOs who will hire environmental technologists. NGOs, particularly in terms of sustainable education. So in India, basically NGOs will be hiring environmental technologists to give education to communities in terms of how to safeguard the environment. And coming to our R&D organizations, I'm sure with a quick search on Google, you would be able to find more than 100 R&D organizations who are pioneering in environmental research. While most of you would actually know the best R&D organizations within India, I've tried to highlight a few organizations here overseas. This is just a few. As I mentioned, there are 100. This, based on the recent research, these few universities topped top 20 over the globe. And this is where I work, Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. However, there are a lot of other organizations like Deakin, Queensland University, London, Sweden, and University of Greenwich in UK and stuff like that. So they are all pioneering in environmental research. So, well, I spoke about so much and I don't have any experience. Would somebody hire me is the question that most of you would have. So for you to gain work experience while you are in undergraduate or postgraduate studies, this is what you need to follow, 4 mantras. So go do volunteer work. Any company, if you need to make your own contacts, write to them asking, I would be really interested in doing a volunteer work in this sector of the environment that you have already been working. I saw on your website that you have been working in these fields. So would I be able to potentially get some volunteer work? So go ahead, ask them, do volunteer work, vacation work. I did pretty much 5 vacation works when I was in BSc and MSc, where I had a genetic engineering course that I completed. I completed molecular biology course and stuff like that. And again, internship. This is very, very important. Many employment organizations actually put internships on their website already. They would have already advertised those roles. You could actually get into internship there, or you could potentially ask them. You could be even lucky that you can get a paid internship and stuff like that. And there are graduate programs where companies specifically look at freshly completed graduate students who have just completed their BSc or MSc to be able to come and work. It is not that they're not paid, they are paid at a graduate level. So these sort of work experience is very, very important for you to be looking at to build a career in environmental technology field. So the high growth sectors that I spoke so far, and you can see here is carbon and the climate change mitigation, which is sitting at 53%, R&D is sitting at 46%, eco-preservation is sitting at 44%, and communications is sitting at 40. Excuse me. Excuse me. And then renewable energy is sitting at 39, and overall there is 37% environmental employment rate across the globe. This is just one example of how many jobs have been predicted. Job opportunities have been predicted. So say, for example, now we are at 2020. In the United States, for geoscientists, there was an opportunity of 50,000 jobs. But unfortunately, currently, we only have 30,000. So there is 20,000 jobs still waiting there for people to be employed. So there is huge demand in this environmental sector. And last but not the least, you can be an entrepreneur. You could actually be, opening your own consultancy firm. You could open your own NGO. You could probably open your own molecular biology lab that is focused on environmental biotechnology and stuff like that. The opportunities are endless. I think with this, I would like to, finish off what are the current opportunities that are available in environmental field and slightly focus on how I have applied all these things into my research. So I would be quickly doing this. I wouldn't be taking too much of time, probably just 5 or 10 minutes to what I have done in my research. So in my PhD, I basically worked on bioremediating soils that are contaminated with polyaromatic hydrocarbons. So these polyaromatic hydrocarbons are what are basically coming from petroleum hydrocarbons or stuff like that, which are they are basically those those compounds have two or more fused benzene aromatic rings, and then they also contain carbon and hydrogen. So, I mean, most of the Environmental Protection Authority agencies have named few PAHs. For instance, US EPA has named 16 PAH as most dangerous. And we usually, when we do research, we usually consider these 16 PAHs as priority pollutants. And it was estimated that around 504 gigagrams of PAHs had been emitted into the atmosphere in, I think this assay was in 2015. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. This is one of the structure of PAHs, that is naphthalene and benzoypyrene, which are fused aromatic rings of benzene rings, basically with carbons and hydrogens. So how do these PAHs enter the environment? That is through industries, that is anthropogenic activity, that is man-made activities, that is through industries, cars, or it could be even by natural ways, that is volcanic eruptions, forest fires, and stuff like that. Oh, excuse me. So what is the pressing issue here? There is a lot of research that has been conducted in terms of PAHs, its bioremediation and stuff like that. But still, why did I choose bioremediation of PAHs as my research? That's basically, there was a lot of research on PAHs remediation. However, we encountered a problem where an industry was shut here in Australia after operating for decades. and that was shut 30 years ago, and the soils could not be remediated because they had high pHs that were aged. As the pHs in the soil age, their bioavailability to microorganisms will be reduced, and you will not be able to treat those soils because the bioavailability has reduced. And the second thing is you will not be even able to extract the pHs from these aged soils because they are tightly bound to the matrix. So there was no existing technology to exactly predict how much pHs is present in these soils. So this is an example where I would like to show you that I did my biotechnology degree, and I had to actually develop a chemistry method wherein I have developed a method to actually extract all the pHs from these aged soils by using gas chromatography mass spectrometry method. Basically, so far, whatever had been mentioned in the literature before I started my PhD was all toxic chemicals. So, well, I wouldn't say I have not used a non-toxic chemical, but definitely much greener compared to what was existing in the literature. So. I tried to compare different solvent extraction systems and then got to know what is the exact concentration of pHs in aged soils, and then remediated these soils using microbes. So this is a multidisciplinary research wherein I have got chemistry, I've got molecular biology, I've got microbiology, and all those things which I'll be just speaking to you in a couple of slides next. This is where I had developed that method and sort of compare different solvent systems, and I found out that acetone hexane was the solvent system that basically extracted high amounts of pHs, that is in the green color, compared to any other pHs. These are the 16 US EPA pHs that I was mentioning at the start, which are considered highly toxic, basically because they are carcinogenic, mutagenic, teratogenic, and all those properties of these chemicals make it very important for it to be actually bioremediated. So acetone hexane is the solvent that we found out to be more greener, environmentally safe compared to chloroform methanol, for instance, or DCM, for instance. So this was a more greener method. And in terms of all the details about this research, you can find it in this research paper, which is publicly available. Now that we got to know that these soils have been highly contaminated with different sorts of pHs, we tried to isolate some organisms from the same soil to see how they would be able to, how we can use them for remediating these soils. After isolating them, in terms of testing them to see if they are potentially pH degraders, we used a technology called Biolog MT2 test technology. If you see here, all these purple wells that are developed are the indicative of organisms capable of degrading pHs, and the non-purple ones, there are organisms here, but they have not turned purple. It's because they do not have the capability of degrading pHs. We had set of around 50 organisms. We have tested 50 organisms for their potential pH degrading capabilities, and then screened probably 12 organisms to be used in the larger scale. More about this study has been published in this research paper you can access, which is publicly available again. Now that we have got the 12 organisms that are capable of degrading pHs, we have actually tested them in a mesocosm scale. If you can see here, this is a mesocosm sort of what we developed. We had like around 250 grams of soils in the mesocosm jars, and then we have inoculated all these organisms individually and in consortium to see if they are capable of degrading pHs. Along with these, we had one which is called biostimulation. If you can see here, oh, sorry. if you can see here, that is called biostimulation. Here in biostimulation treatment, what we have done is we have not added any organism, but rather we just gave this, excuse me. So in biostimulation, rather we have just maintained appropriate conditions like giving it proper temperature, aeration, water, and stuff like that. And we tested how would every microcosm work in terms of having inoculation and biostimulation. And over 50 days, 60 days, we found out that most of the all the treatments, in fact, reduced pHs by 100%. But we wanted to see if it was because of the organisms that we have inoculated, or is there anything happening. For this, we used something called metagenomics, that is called next generation sequencing technologies. In the next generation sequencing technologies, what we did is we got to know, we tried to extract these molecular DNA, and then we subjected it to sort of metagenomic studies, and we got to know what is the sort of phylum that is available in these soils. And we also got to see what is the changes, like, say, for example, here biostimulation at day 0 and biostimulation at day 28 has a different trend. Why was this trend observed and stuff like that? Is there any changes in the phylum and stuff like that? I don't want to go to too much details, but this is sort of NGS analysis that we have done to look at the phylum, that is the change in the phylum or community shifts that has occurred during the treatments, microbial community shifts. And again, this is the same, but that was for the phylum, and this is for the basically for specific 16S rRNA sequences. Why I have put this here is these are the places, these where I have used our statistical program, Python statistical program. So after your metagenomics, next generation sequencing analysis, you would end up having data sets that would have millions of reads. You cannot go through each and every Excel sheet to basically try and compare and do your analysis. So for these things, you need our statistical software. This is how I have actually applied whatever skills I was speaking at the start in my research. I think with that, this is what my PhD work focused on. And the next slide that I'm having here is about the policy brief. Now I'm a biotechnologist, but I have also authored various policy briefs for the United Nations University. So we looked at what is the impact of microplastics in water, and we basically suggested a policy for the Department of Energy, Water, and Environment here in Australia, what they could actually be implementing in terms of policy. As a researcher, I do not have the capability to implement the policy, but I could suggest. That suggestion has come from the research that I have done so far. So this is a policy brief that we have authored. This is all publicly available. You can have a look at this. And again, this is another research where, this is called microbial enhanced oil recovery. This is the energy sector research that I have actually conducted, wherein we have, this is just a schematic representation that I have downloaded from internet. So this is molasses here. Unfortunately, ours is not molasses, but we have surfactants here. So based on my PhD work, we identified some organisms that are capable of actually producing surfactants. These surfactants actually improve in the oil mobility in recovering oil from the pumps. Can you see this is the pump here? So basically in the oil wells, we put in our surfactants here, and they will improve the oil mobility, and it will help in enhanced oil recovery. In the sense, say for example, you would get a 20 ml of oil. That is an example. That is not 20 ml anytime. Say for example, without the surfactant, you would be getting 20 ml. With the surfactant, you would be able to increase it by 20%. Say you would be getting 25 meals after adding surfactant. So we have done such sort of research in this area. This is the application of biotechnology in energy sector that I have done. And this is another research that was funded by Environment Protection Authority Victoria, where we have actually looked at potential biomarkers in water. So for basically PFASs are sort of a compound that is present where you're like, when you're trying to get the fire off, the substances that you use, that liquid that you use to get the fire off, they have PFASs, for example. So these have high impact on aquatic community. So we try to see what could be a potential biomarker within the aquatic ecosystem for this PFASs. And based on intensive research, we found out that amphibians are the potential biomarkers for these PFASs in aquatic system. This research has not been published yet, so it will be published very soon. And apart from these researchers that I have spoken now, I also have, excuse me. I've also been involved in various research projects which actually involve looking at rapid detection techniques. Say, for example, we go on site to water and we have developed a kit where we can actually just use that kit to look at the potential pathogen in whatever water, say, for example, wastewater treatment plant or just the water. So I've also been involved in development of these sort of assay kits as a team. And I think I would like to stop here because I've taken more than an hour now. I would like to give more time for the questions. Before that, I would like to just acknowledge my biotechnology team. Here at the left, Professor Andy Ball, who has been leading our Ensure team, which is a world famous environmental biotechnology group that we have, Professor Mark Oswin from RMIT, and Dr. Paul Lay from EPA Victoria, who has been really a great mentor for my research, Dr. Philip Water from UNU, United Nations University, basically, and all the funding bodies that have received funding so far from. And I would like to again thanks to the organizers for giving me some time and opportunity to talk. Thank you, Mamta ma'am. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Principal. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you so
And I'm
much.
open for questions. Yeah.
A session is open for discussion. Participants may post their questions in the chat box as well as comment box in the YouTube channel. So they have already posted a few questions. I can post that questions to the speaker right now. Okay, one question is, the currently a person called Ambarish is working on bioremediation of heavy metals. He would like to know the technologies, that is innovative technologies developed recently towards bioremediation areas.
It depends on what sort of heavy metals are you looking at. Are you looking at platinum? Are you looking at gold? Or are you looking at uranium and stuff like that? So there are a lot of different technologies that have been recently developed. So one stream that is under high demand at this stage, where there is a lot of research happening, is in terms of remediating these heavy metals using nanotechnology. This has been actually especially green nanotechnology, I would like to say, where we are utilizing nanoparticles to treat these heavy metals. So this could be a potential area of interest if he wants to pursue his career in bioremediation of heavy metals.
Again, same person, Amrish, he wanted to know which are the microbes which is encountered for PHA. Can you give some example?
PAH or PHA?
Sorry, PAH. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. There are, for instance, in my study, I found out rhodococcus. There are a lot of bacilli which are known for pH degradation, and there is microbacterium known for pH degradation. Microbacterium has been patented for by one of these universities in United States. So basically, there are a lot of organisms that have been known for pH degradation.
So the question is like arsenic, chromium, and cadmium metals. Can it be used?
Yes, definitely. Yep. You can use nanotechnology in terms of remediating these.
Okay.
You can use gold nanoparticles along with microbes to remediate these soils. Yep.
So he's actually planning to isolate microbes from these contaminated soils. So he wants to address, I mean, like, can he be able to contact you for any queries related to that?
Oh, definitely. At the start of this presentation, I already put my email ID there, so I should be able to reply to any of his queries or any others queries. In fact, yeah, I should be more than happy.
Okay. There's another question from Gayatri. They're starting with a project on plastic degrading microbes. Could you please give us some tips about it?
It depends on what sort of lab settings you have. Is it going to be conducted at Oxford College, or do they have any other R&D lab for them to be able to do the research?
Okay.
I can give, even otherwise what I could do is I can give you this sort of insight where if you're looking at plastic degradation, you could look at potentially if I'm not wrong, were they asking for microbiology field or was something else?
I don't know exactly.
Okay, so I can give an insight on microbiology point of view. So what they could be doing is if they are trying to look at what is plastic degradation, they can probably looking at initially what was the microbe that were present on the plastic, and then whatever treatment technology they are going to take, say for example, they might actually put it in the soil, wrap them in the soil, and they can see if the plastic is being degraded after, say, it would definitely take an year or two. It wouldn't happen in a week or two, unlike like for different chemicals. So they could, for instance, look at what is the microbiology around these plastics by using next generation sequencing during different time points, say 1 week, 15 days, or they could, because it is a 1 year experiment or 2 year experiment, they could also be looking at monthly basis. They could collect some samples. If they have the facility available for next generation sequencing within the laboratory they're working, that is well and good. Otherwise, there are a lot of organizations where you can outsource your samples and they will analyze and give you the results.
Okay. Question from Mahendra Kumar. How do we detoxify heavy metals in huge lakes like in Bangalore?
Okay, heavy metals is, it is a pretty debating questions in terms of detoxifying. There are a few biotechnological remediation methods that have been, like in terms of applying microbes, and along with microbes you can actually put in surfactants to make sure that there is good amount of interactions with heavy metals and microbes, because surfactants can increase the sort of what do you say, the relationship between the heavy metals and microbes. But at the current stage, most of the treatments is focused under chemical treatment methods or slurping and stuff like that. But yes, you could probably be even, the microbes that you think are going to work for heavy metal degradation can be even put in sort of powdered form, basically dry frozen. They can be dry frozen and then put it into the water for treatment of heavy metals in, say, for example, lakes that he was mentioning.
Thank you. Another question from Sanmugam, Associate Professor, JNC, Jyotinivas College. Any genetic mutation will be seen in the microbes after the treatment?
Genetic mutations, to be honest, I'm not a genetic engineer. I might not be the right person to answer this question. But if you are looking at application of a genetically modified organism already capable of, say, for example, heavy metal degrading organisms, I would say most of the countries, including Australia, United States, I'm not too sure about the regulations in India, do not allow GMO organisms to be put in the environment. So I'm sure there will be a lot of genetic shifts that happen within the microorganisms when you actually put in, because they get adapted to that particular climate, and there will be a lot of genetic alterations that happen within the microbes. But as such, you cannot have a genetically modified organisms done in your lab and then utilize it in the open fields. Australia, for instance, definitely says no for GMO. There is, even if you want to do it, there is a big process of taking a permission. So that is quite tedious.
Good. This is a question from Neha. Can a modified microbial enhancer be used in cleaning the oil spills in oceans and sea?
Yes, there are a lot of case studies, including the ones that had oil spill for about, I think it was a couple of 2015. I don't remember that oil spill. It's not on top of my head at this stage. There was a very big oil spill, and they in fact used the microbial cultures to clean the oil spills even in the seas, and it worked really well. So yes, you can use them for cleaning the oil spills.
Okay. This is from Abhinaya. Currently, he is pursuing his PhD in environmental biotechnology. Is there any postdoc, opening currently? He wants the postdoc rate.
All the postdoc positions will be usually advertised online. With the current COVID situations where, travel between, forget about inter-country, interstate travel has also been very difficult everywhere. So I do not know what opportunities there is currently on place to offer for a postdoc opportunities. But I would say LinkedIn and other professional networking sites would definitely be of a lot of help. And anybody wanting to pursue their higher education and stuff like that, or even into jobs, using this networking sites like LinkedIn and stuff like that is very, 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 very beneficial and important.
Question from Sanjay. He wants to know, mangrove soil bacteria have been found efficient in plastic degradation. Like, what's making it efficient over other class of bacteria?
Well, this is a very nice question. Mangrove soils are known to be, I think they are in temperate climate, so probably they can be used in most of the environmental settings, like where you can manage those temperature settings. That could probably one of the reasons, but I haven't come across that paper. That definitely would be a great opportunity for me also to learn about it.
Okay. This is from Shrija. She wanted to know, how did you gain your interest in environmental biology?
I would like to say this was definitely from Oxford College of Science. We had a professor called Saravanan sir. So he would always tell us the most important sectors that had in that point of time, which could actually gain you, employment. He actually always used to tell us toxicology is very, very good. Go for toxicology. Next thing is environmental technology. So that is how, when I came here to Australia, I was looking for both toxicology and environmental biotechnology. But when I was actually looking at Professor Andy Ball, who is my PhD supervisor's profile, I thought this is the lab I have to work in. This is one of the well-known labs, and I approached him if I could actually be able to do PhD under his guidance at RMIT, and that worked out really well for me. I was able to secure a position here.
Thank you. That was great. There's this question from Dr. Guru Raj. Currently, he's working in the E2E Biotech company. He wants to know who does the environmental impact assessment studies. Is it a government body-based position?
Well, I would like to say it is done by both private sectors and government sectors. With my experience when I was working in Environment Protection Authority here in Victoria, I used to do environmental assessments. Basically, I used to go to sites, collect the samples, and then send it through to labs. And once the labs gave me the results, I used to actually analyze the results. This was for the government to know where the pollution is. And say, for example, there is a lake which had high pollution, the government would actually deem it not usable. Basically, people cannot go around that lake or go around the soil or use that water or whatever. So this is done by a government body. Say for private sector, say for example, somebody wants to build a building in a plot of land. So for them to be able to build the building, they should have clearance for all the contaminants and stuff like that. So they wouldn't go to a government body. They would go to a private consulting firm. The consulting firm will then look for any hazardous waste which is present around the site they want to build the building, or is there any other potential contamination in that or stuff like that. Say, for example, there are some councils. Councils want to see if their land is okay to be used, if their water is okay to be used by people around. The councils don't come to Environment Protection Authority, but councils would hire individual consultant, that is consulting firm, and they would do all these risk assessment for the councils, and the council then apply for permit through EPA, where EPA will give permission for them to do work. So this is how it is both interlinked with the private sector and the public sector.
What are the qualifications and career prospects in this area?
Sorry?
What are the qualifications needed?
For risk assessment?
Yes.
For risk assessment, it is definitely your environmental technology degree. You wouldn't read anything else. Basically, you should also have a knowledge of toxicology, which is already covered under your environmental technology degree.
Okay. How about the opportunities for postgraduate students of microbiology and biotechnology field?
Opportunities for? Sorry, ma'am, I couldn't hear you.
Postgraduate students.
For higher studies, or
just as an environmentalist, where they can be placed?
There are a lot of opportunities that I've actually discussed throughout this seminar. You can be placed in various different organizations, and this is one of the booming sectors. They say by
microbiology student. So after pursuing MSc microbiology, what are the opportunities?
Whatever I spoke throughout this seminar could be a potential opportunity even for an environmental microbiologist. I was an environmental biotechnology students like most of you who have taken up the course in Oxford College now, but I have basically looking at the transferable skills that you have can make you employed in any sector of environmental technology that I have spoken so far.
So thank you very much
Thank you
for this wonderful session. It was very interactive. And
Thank you.
I would like to say the participants that any more queries, you are open to you can log into our channel and you can still post any questions related to the topic even after the webinar. We'll try to reach our speakers and we'll clarify all your doubts. Thank you very much. And it's time to propose vote of thanks. So every ending is the beginning of new phase. Before we end the 3 days international webinar on emerging trends and prospects in biotechnology, a career guidance series, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to all three resource people, great personalities, our alumni of TOBS, who made us feel proud once again. First day we had Dr. Sanjay Sharma, second day Arijit Kumar, and third day today we are having with us Ms. Nagalakshmi. I would like to thank you so much, Ms. Nagalakshmi, for considering my invitation, and we are very thankful for you for sharing a most valuable information with the gathering. We look forward your support and continued relationship among TOBS. We are grateful to our beloved chairman, Sri SNVL Narasimha Raju. I thank him for his presence during inaugural ceremony, kindness, interest, and continued support. Well, the event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels started rolling weeks ago. It requires planning and bird's eyes for details. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by a very motivated and dedicated leader who always expects perfection in all. I extend my thanks to our beloved principal, Dr. Kavishri R. of TOCS, for her enormous cooperation in organizing this event. My special appreciation and gratitude to organizing committee, faculty members of TOBS who work very courageously to achieve the success in conduct of this webinar. My special thanks to Mr. Prakash, our system administrator, who worked proactively and managed not to have any glitches during live streaming sessions. Last but not least, I would like to thank all the participants from various colleges, universities, and research institutions from all over the country and abroad for their presence, likes, views, comments, and also subscribing our TOBS channel, which really encourages us to do many such events in future. So thank you one and all again. And I would like to end the session with a quote by saying a quote from APJ Abdul Kalam: "The ignited mind of the youth is the most powerful resource on the earth, above the earth, and under the earth." And this is Mamta, Associate Professor, Department of Biotechnology, signing off for this 3 days international webinar and looking forward to meet you all virtually again for the upcoming events. Shortly, we'll be posting releasing the next flyer for the next series. Till then, take care. Thank you all.